As we kick off 224 with our 17th biweekly episode of Patriots Podium, we are thrilled to continue to bring you insightful discussions with key figures shaping the conservative landscape. Today, we have a rising star in Albany, and I think in the conservative movement in general, joining us. In fact, this member of the legislature had one of our highest ratings, and the state Conservative Party does legislative ratings annually based on, the previous year. His rating was 84%, and that's as a freshman, and we appreciate that. This is Assemblyman Anil Behan, but he's best known as AJ by all of us, and he represents the 105th Assembly District, which is totally contained within Dutchess County. AJ is a young, energetic Republican conservative assembly member representing the ideals that resonate with the next generation of conservatives. We are honored to have him share his insights on a myriad of topics, providing our listeners with firsthand look into the 2024 State of the State address by Governor Hochul, as well as other issues that affected that will affect all of us this year. AJ, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on, Jerry. I'm excited for this discussion, and I'm proud to be a member of the Conservative Party and representing the ideals of the great initiatives that you all stand for.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So let's get into it. What do you consider the top three issues that the New York State Legislature refuses to address?
Well, they may say that they're addressing these things, but in all reality, they're not. So public safety, number one, especially for our cities. I have a lot of residents, even up here in the Hudson Valley, that work, play in New York City, and they're just not feeling safe. They feel that cashless bail reform and some of the changes to the discovery laws went too far. And while the governor says that she's addressing these, and while they had a somewhat insightful try at fixing it last year, it did not come to fruition to the extent that it should have. So public safety is still number one, impacting especially our downstate New Yorkers. Number two, affordability. She talked about all these initiatives during the State of the State, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But she only glanced over the fact that New York is facing a $4 billion deficit. There's a significant amount of money on the line here. And as they add more and more programs and funding things that we quite frankly can't afford, all that's going to end up on the backs of our taxpayers and residents. And as we know, we lead the country in population loss, and affordability has a big part to do with that. And then three, the migrant issue. I mean, we're seeing hundreds of thousands of migrants coming into the New York City area. And again, this ties back into affordability because Eric Adams is coming to Albany, going to D.C., asking for billions and billions of dollars to subsidize what's going on down there. And beyond that, we're seeing them being illegally bused into the Hudson Valley, upstate. They're being housed at hotels across the state. People don't know who these migrants are. They don't know if they've passed a background check. Can they pass a background check? There's no real accountability here. So that's just the top three that at least I'm focused on and that we're focused on in Albany. But we know that the list goes on and on.
Well, let's talk more directly about the State of the State, often called the SOS. The Conservative Party actually played off that theme. Interestingly, historically, governors have had themes such as, the days of wine and roses are over, and there's been positive, there's been negative. Certainly Governor Pataki had themes every year. She seemed this year to lack a real theme. She, beyond the fact that she wanted to give kind of a depressing message, that all of a sudden after 12 years as either governor or lieutenant governor, she's all of a sudden woke up. So our message was that her SOS message was really an SOS shared by 1.2 million former New Yorkers who have chosen to move out of the state, and many other New Yorkers who are considering leaving are in turn finding the need to leave very real, but don't have the ability to pick up and go for a million and one different reasons. So you gave us an outline on some issues. Could you give us some thoughts specifically on her rhetoric and how you came out feeling when you left that speech?
Well, let's be honest. She brought up a number of different themes during State of the State, but she actually didn't say very much. it was a lot of, as we would like to say, pontificating from her end. She brought up the fact that she wants to address shoplifting. Well, this ties back to the overall arching problem, bail reform, right? But she won't say that. She brought up affordability, but yet she highlighted a number of different ways that she's going to be spending money on new programs that she wants to put forward. He definitely brought up the Second Amendment. She said that she's going to be taking shots at the Second Amendment again, but she's classifying it under domestic violence and easing domestic violence for those who suffer with it. But those always don't go hand in hand. She claimed that the Supreme Court of the U.S., who has been doing great things for us, especially on the right side of the aisle, upholding our constitutional values. She's taking shots at them, saying that because of them, we now have to double down on state laws. So what she did during the State of the State was highlight very, very low-key issues and not the ones that we really need to address. She started off by saying, we're going to address migrants in the coming weeks when she does her State of the Region down in Long Island. Well, that's probably one of the top issues we should have tackled during State of the State. For me, my personal reaction to the State of the State was the fact that when she brought up domestic violence, I've been working on a bill called Melanie's Law. And that law stemmed from a tragic incident that happened in our district. We have a great bill that we're working on that can make some real meaningful change for people to seek help, obtain orders of protection from those that are directly wanting to harm them. And I wish that she would use her abilities and her platform to push initiatives like that instead of tackling or attacking our legal Second Amendment supporters.
That's very interesting. Thank you on that. So let me say this. The Indian American community actually nationally is playing a increasing role in Republican conservative politics. But in New York, you're really, I believe, the first individual of Indian descent to serve as a Republican in our state assembly. In New York in particular, and I don't necessarily find this a national thing, but I do find this very much in New York, the Democrats play heavy identity politics. Do the Democrats, your colleagues, appreciate the rich value of your heritage, knowledge, and background? Or are you just essentially another Republican conservative from their perspective with no real recognition of all the additional attributes you bring to the legislative body?
Yeah, so you're right. I am the first Republican of Indian descent to serve in the state legislature, especially the state assembly. But I'm also the first of Caribbean descent. My parents immigrated here from Trinidad and Tobago when they were in their early 20s. So having this unique perspective going into the legislature, I thought, why not try my best to work across the aisle with members of the majority? One way I did that was by joining the Black, Puerto Rican, Asian, Hispanic caucus, and they let me in. I know that it was a little bit of a debate letting in the first Republican into the mix. They did let me in. They have included me in every initiative that they put forward. If I wanted to be included, that is, sometimes our ideals may not align, but everything from like Caribbean Heritage Month, they made sure I was part of that whole initiative. Anything that they're doing that's related to like Indian, Asian related initiatives, like for instance, making Diwali a holiday in New York City, and then further, they're going to push to make it a statewide holiday in schools later this year. Coming from that background, even though I'm a Christian now, I could tell you that means a lot to the Indian American communities, especially in the city. And even up here in the Hudson Valley, I have the privilege of representing almost 5,000 Sikhs that live in my district, and they celebrate Diwali. And they were so encouraged to see that come to fruition in state law. So you know what? I'll actually give them the credit where credit's due, that they actually kind of brought me in and they're willing to work with me to the extent that they can work with me. But at the end of the day, I'm still a Republican, which means I can't pass statewide bills without a Democrat prime co-sponsor. And unfortunately, my district doesn't get the funding that other majority members gets compared to what the minority is given. So, we're still disadvantaged in that way, but in ways that they can, they do work with us. So
that's good. That's good. That's appropriate. And I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you. So you were also the youngest ever East Fishkill town councilman. In fact, I think I first met you while you were a town councilman at an event in
Mhm.
Manhattan. Do you feel the younger generation is starting to lean more conservative, and how can we retain that, assuming it's true?
Yeah, so I am having more and more people come up to me and saying the left has gone too far left. It's no longer their party, what they were thought they were signing up for. Also, a lot of people are saying they were duped in college. You know, they thought everyone was a Democrat, so that's why they registered Democrat. And now they're coming back to their hometowns, and I'm sitting at, even if we're out having a drink at a bar, they're saying like, listen, now that I'm working and now that I have to pay taxes and rent and groceries, and they're starting to realize, well, maybe some of these initiatives aren't all that they were cut out and they were sold to be. They're realizing that there needs to be balance in government, and New York is not balanced. There's a supermajority in both houses. They have the governor, the attorney general, the comptroller. There is no balance. They do what they want to do. And with the newest addition to the New York State Court of Appeals, all that does is solidify their extremist positions. So that has been encouraging for us on our side of the aisle, seeing younger folks wanting to get more involved, and coming to either the center or center right, saying like, listen, like we recognize New York has gone down a rabbit hole, and they're trying to save our state before it goes too far down. It's encouraging to see the numbers of young Republicans and younger conservatives actually rising, more people wanting to get involved. I had a meeting with a few folks already, just locally, that want to run for political office. I know you and I spoke about a candidate. She's 24 years old, and that's exciting to see a 24-year-old wanting to get involved. When people think about politics now, they see how they tear you apart in the media. They go after your families. You're constantly under the microscope, and the fact that people put that aside, and that it's all about that public service to them, doing what's right, and they're willing to jump in the arena. I give them credit for that. So I think as we forward, we need people to realize that just changing, and their party, so are we. We're no longer the old school party, but our values deep down are the same. We want smaller government, we want less government intervention in our lives, and at the end of the day, we want to make the state more affordable. By the government spending less, you're able to keep more in your pockets, and obviously the freedom of being able to not have these restrictive laws, upholding the Constitution and everything that it stands for. So,
But that was a very informative answer, and it was certainly what I would hope you would say, but at the same time, you gave it a lot of teeth, and I appreciate that. Let me ask you this. Our legislative conference in Albany is on February 4th and 5th, and I actually noticed that that you're scheduled to be there, coming by. So this is just for the audience. That's our conference. It's February 4th and 5th in Albany. It's very inexpensive a conference. A lot of legislators are going to be there, but AJ is planning to be there, and he'd be somebody I think it'd be fantastic if the audience, those who could make it, could actually come up to Albany and meet him. Because I think in person, you're just like you are on this podcast. You're a person that sincerely expresses a kind of a personalization. You haven't been doing this so long that you've become stale to it. And I
yeah,
think
I'm definitely not jaded. Not yet by any means. I'm definitely excited to go back to Albany each time we do, and get to work. There's a lot of important things that we need to get done, and I still see opportunities to do so. So I know that may change the longer you serve in public office, but I'm still gearing up to go and fight as much as I can, and try to get as much as I can done.
well, we advocate for term limits, but you are a long way away from the term limits we advocate for.
Yeah, well, listen, so when I was on the town board, I actually sponsored the resolution for the first ever term limits in East Fishkill.
Yeah,
So that, I would love to see the same thing happen here in the state. That's for
I
sure.
think I think our party position is either 4 or 5 terms. So you're moving into your second after you win re-election November, so you got a ways to go.
Yeah, fingers
So
crossed.
let's move over a little bit over to this congressional reapportionment. Eventually, it's going to make its way to you. Actually, I'm very
Right.
sorry to say that, but it's going to, not because it's you, but because it has to make its way back over to the legislature. Do you have a chance? Do you spend time talking with your Democratic colleagues about what's come about, what outcomes can be? Do you think they understand that they opened a can of worms that I mean, they're anticipating results that just may not work out that way because they're trying to take out some very good Republican conservative legislators who've done a fantastic job
Right.
during their term. Um, and do you find many of them are just it's partisan? They go along to get along on the reapportionment issue. Hey,
Right.
talk to me about it.
So I find some of the answers I hear about it's split, right? Some of them either are gung ho on removing all Republicans from members of Congress, and then you have the other half that just really don't seem to care all that much. But speaking of apportionment, when they challenged the assembly maps not that long ago, what we saw coming out of the Independent Redistricting Commission was almost identical to what the courts drew for us for that special election. I'm hopeful in some ways that that's the same thing that's going to happen with these congressional maps, but with so much on the table, especially a revived effort from their side to flip the House, I guess I can't be that hopeful. There's some things that may play to our advantage here, and that's the fact that we just had an assembly member from the majority resign. So that's one less vote they have of a supermajority. So if one of their members votes with our conference against those maps, well, those maps aren't going to make it through the state legislature. So I'm sure that they're going to have to be careful with what they're doing with those maps, especially until they're able to have a special election for that assembly seat. I do plan, as well as many of my colleagues, to debate them as much as possible. I was dismayed that the Independent Redistricting Commission did not accept any further public comment. I don't know if you saw that coming out of them,
We do.
but I don't think that's right. Folks had the ability to comment years ago, right? And then the maps are solidified. The judge then redrew them. But now this is essentially a whole new process. Why shouldn't there be a public comment period? People have the right to express that they either like or dislike their current representation and where the maps are drawn. So I'd say it's a good mixture up in the state legislature of what may and may not be done. But I'm not hopeful. That's for sure. I'm definitely not
Well,
hopeful.
I mean, we literally share exactly what you said. We obviously believe that the effort took place. They were fair fight districts. We are advocating now that we've had to go through this,
Mm-hmm.
that the lines remain the same. I understand exactly what you are saying. I am hopeful that, to your point, that I don't anticipate a floor vote that the speaker loses, but I'm hoping behind the scenes that the speaker has 3, 4, 5 members that are saying, you know what, we I don't see how we don't tinker, but I don't see at the same time how we give in and just create new districts. So I'm hopeful. That much I'm hopeful about.
Right.
But this shouldn't have come about anyways. This is a waste of time and money. And New Yorkers have to understand that this is a waste of time and money. This doesn't come about free. And then you know what? There's the potential here of a second petition period, a second primary. There's a
Right.
lot of money at stake in a state that has no money.
Oh yeah,
So
and beyond the cost of all of this, it's the fact that it's not fair for just residents seeking representation. Think about it. You've had now almost 2 years to get to know your new legislator, and then that could all be uprooted. Beyond the residents, now think about the nonprofits, the small businesses, all the advocacy groups that people are proudly a part of. They spend all this time and their money building those relationships, and it's about to be uprooted. It could potentially be uprooted. That's not fair representation. That's not how it should be.
well, how about the whole issue of changing the dates
Yeah.
on the local elections? I mean,
Yeah.
what their rhetoric is hollow. It
Right.
just reeks of hollowness. you just came through in Dutchess County, county legislative races, as well as supervisor races, and of course the county exec race. There is no way those county legislative races would have received the same attention in an even number of years. It's inconceivable. Sue
Yeah.
Serino deserves a full airing. Is Sue
Right.
Serino supposed to go juxtaposed back and forth with a presidential or gubernatorial candidate? Why would you do that to people? Why would you do that? I mean, they come up with embarrassing reasons to be in highly partisan, and many people in this state are very cynical about democratic politics. Unfortunately, they're cynical about all politics, but right now, I think the Democrats are winning the day on cynicism.
Yeah. Well, listen, I call that the Republican Extinction Act because that's exactly what it is. As you said earlier, I came from local government, and I remember going door to door campaigning for town board, and then now last year campaigning, or 2 years ago now, campaigning for the state assembly. The conversations are completely different because people's mindsets are completely different. When I was going door to door for town board, people were asking me about what's going on with our roads, local economic development, local things that are important for the local governments to focus on. Now, when I go to door for the state assembly, what's your views on abortion? Who are you voting for president? What's your whole take on redistricting? The conversations are being drawn away from the local all the way up to state and even national. And I feel like that's going to deeply impact our local governments and those representatives because it's going to be the sheer numbers of who comes out to vote. And they're just going to vote their party lines, and it's going to decimate our local governments. They're not going to get the fair shake they deserve. Sue Serino would have never been able to compete with, say, a gubernatorial candidate for media market time. Everyone gets drowned out with mailers and digital ads. It's almost impossible to run a proper campaign alongside a state and national campaign. It just doesn't work. So I completely agree. I think our conference did a great job debating that bill till the very end. And then just about every member, including myself, spoke on it and against it, that is. So hopefully they'll have a good legal standing when they challenge these laws in court. I'm optimistic for county races and for village races, not so much for town elections, but I guess we'll see how that shakes out in the legal process.
I mean, the irony too is that they wanted to talk, the governor and some people, about the savings. There's no savings
No.
because you still have the judicial, and you still have the clerks, and you still have the district attorneys who are state positions running in those years, and frankly speaking, you still got the cities. So,
well, did you notice that there was any one particular municipality that was excluded from all of this? And it was New York City. So,
all the municipalities are excluded based on the provisions of state constitution. City of Poughkeepsie is excluded.
Right.
It's every city.
But it was the votes from the members of New York City that took this across the aisle. We had quite a few members of the majority that voted with us against this legislation, but there was just enough votes from just out of New York City alone to carry this bill.
No, I mean, that's unfortunately the way it has been. I mean, New York City's on Mars and everybody else is on Venus, and I mean, it's just the reality and the arrogance of many of the New York City Democrats to essentially want to tell everyone else how they should think is really something that has become unique to current political discourse, which by its very nature is anti what America's about.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons we exist, right? We exist. So let me ask you this: could you just give us some final thoughts, having spent a little time with us? What your thoughts for the future, your thoughts about yourself for the future, anything you feel like you want to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, for my future, I could see myself staying with the state legislature for quite some time. My goal is to become more effective member as well as that I can. I'm not looking to leap to higher office anytime soon or at all. But I could say that our conference consists of some really great members, people that truly care about their districts, care about our state. And I know for a fact that, while you may see things in the media and on Facebook and get these scary emails, there are people fighting for you in Albany. We are few and far between, but there are people that believe in truly saving the state, in common sense legislation, and opposing some of the radical ideals that come out of the governor's office and the majority. So please don't be dismayed, thinking that there's no one fighting for you. That there's quite a bit of people that care up there.
I believe that. Yeah, I absolutely believe that there are good people that are having their being a little bit suppressed up there, but
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's not a lack of trying. I'll tell you that. I give your leader Barkley and Senator Ott credit for continuously pushing ideas. I suppose if they steal one of your ideas, it's to your credit, but really, it frankly isn't very fair either. But they do. They do steal good Republican ideals.
But that's the only way that they pass, though, because if you have a good Republican idea, unless if you give it to a majority member, it'll never see the light of day. And I encourage anyone to make their way up to Albany. If your member won't see me, I'll definitely bring you onto the floor of the legislature, just so you can see for yourself how things transpire up there, especially during contentious debates.
Well, interestingly, we're going to be encouraging at the conference on the Monday afternoon where there's a break, people who are there who are not members of our, state executive committee, because we have meetings at the afternoon. We're going to have a bus. We're going to send them up to the Capitol. I'm going to inform the leaders that they're coming by. And you may have some people like Terry or some others out of Dutchess that want to come by and take you up on that introduction on the floor. I mean, I think that's a wonderful idea. By the way, wonderful idea.
Yeah, no, I'm all about it. I'm excited to see them, and like I said, I encourage anyone that wants to see how the government truly operates. Please let us know. We'd be happy to coordinate that.
Well, good, very good. Thank you. Now, thank you, AJ, for spending some time with us. The Conservative Party takes pride in your hard work and commitment to conservatism. And thank you, Katie and Andrew, for making the podcast happen. And for our audience, we appreciate you tuning in, and we are excited really about what 224 can bring. We always say that a political year is consequential, but I mean, frankly, I don't really have to convince anybody about the consequences of 224. That rhetoric is way ahead of me. Thanks again for joining us. And if you enjoy today's podcast, subscribe wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating. Until next time, I'm Jerry Kassar, and this is Patriots Podium. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.